The Anderson Tower loomed over downtown Chicago, its 40 stories of glass and steel a monument to my family's legacy, or so they thought. I sat in my deliberately modest office across town, watching the building through my webcam feed as the sun began to set. "Everything's ready," Jennifer, my chief of operations, confirmed. "The new signage is programmed. Legal has verified all documentation. At midnight, Anderson Consulting officially becomes Anderson Global." I smiled, thinking of tonight's family dinner. Another fun evening of my parents and siblings reminding me how I'd wasted my Stanford MBA by starting my own company instead of joining the family firm. "The board meeting minutes are prepared," Jennifer added. "Your father won't know what hit him until it's done." My phone buzzed. Mom's weekly guilt trip right on schedule. "Dinner at 7. Please dress appropriately this time. The Bradleys will be there. Their son James is now a senior partner." Always with the eligible bachelors. Always with the subtle digs about my struggling business. If they only knew that my little startup had been systematically acquiring Anderson Consulting's shares through various shell companies for the past 3 years. At 6:55, I pulled up to their Gold Coast mansion in my practical Tesla. Another disappointment to Dad, who believed success meant a Mercedes or nothing. The irony that my modest car cost more than his didn't escape me. "Sarah," Mom air kissed my cheek in the foyer. "You're almost late. And wearing business casual? The Bradleys are here." I smoothed my intentionally understated blazer, which probably cost more than her entire outfit. "Sorry, Mom. Been busy with work." "That little consulting firm of yours?" Dad boomed from his study. "Still playing entrepreneur instead of joining a real company?" If he only knew that my little firm had just closed a $12 billion deal with Microsoft. But tonight wasn't about my success. It was about their failure to see it. "James was just made senior partner," Mom gushed as we entered the dining room. "Youngest in the firm's history." James Bradley smiled smugly from across the table. 7 years ago he'd rejected my proposal to modernize Anderson Consulting's tech division. Now his outdated systems were about to become my property. "How's the startup life, Sarah?" he smirked. "Still working from that small office downtown?" I thought about my company's real headquarters, 50 stories of cutting-edge architecture in Silicon Valley, currently operating under a different name. "It pays the bills." "Bills?" Dad laughed. "You could be making real money if you just joined the family business. Anderson Consulting is a legacy." "A legacy that's about to change," I muttered under my breath. "What was that, dear?" "Nothing, Mom. Pass the wine." Dinner proceeded with its usual pattern: celebrations of my siblings' minor achievements, pointed comments about my career choices, and endless praise for James Bradley's corporate climb. "When are you going to grow up?" Dad finally exploded after his third scotch. "You'll never amount to anything with this entrepreneur nonsense." I checked my watch. 11:45 p.m. Perfect timing. "Actually, Dad," I pulled out my tablet, "let's talk about amounting to something." The screens around the dining room, installed to showcase family photos, suddenly flickered to life. Company documents appeared showing ownership transfers, board decisions, and one very specific change of control. "What is this?" Dad stood up, face reddening. "Anderson Consulting's new organizational chart." I smiled. "Effective midnight tonight." James Bradley choked on his wine as he recognized his department's position, now several layers below mine. "You see," I continued, "while you were all laughing at my little startup, I was building something bigger. Something that just acquired controlling interest in Anderson Consulting." Mom's hand flew to her pearls. "That's impossible. The family owns 40%, I finished for her. "While my shell companies now own 60. Check your phones." As if on cue, their phones began buzzing with news alerts and frantic messages from board members. Outside, through the dining room windows, the Anderson Towers sign began to change. "No," Dad whispered, watching his legacy transform. "You couldn't." "But I could. And I did." The dining room erupted in chaos as the Anderson Towers sign completed its transformation. Anderson Global, owned by Sarah Anderson, now blazed across the Chicago skyline, visible through the floor-to-ceiling windows of their precious mansion. "This is a joke," James Bradley stammered, frantically dialing his office. "The firm can't be." I would have known. Would you? I pulled up more documents on the screens. Like you knew about the outdated security protocols I warned you about 7 years ago? The ones that made it embarrassingly easy to acquire shares through shell companies. Dad's face had turned an alarming shade of purple. You went behind our backs? Behind your backs? I laughed, standing to face the window. I presented every innovation, every upgrade, every modernization plan directly to the board. You all dismissed them. So I built them myself. My phone buzzed, Jennifer sending live updates. Stock trading halted due to volatility. CNBC breaking news alert about Anderson takeover. Wall Street Journal requesting comment. What have you done to our company? Mom whispered, tears streaming down her face. Your company? I turned, pulling up more data. Let's talk about what you did to it. Market share down 40% in 5 years. Technology 2 generations behind. Client satisfaction at historic lows. The screens filled with graphs and charts, each one a damning indictment of their management. While you were hosting dinner parties and bragging about James's promotion, I continued, I built Anderson Global, a modern consulting firm that's about to absorb your outdated one. Anderson Global? James scrolled through his phone, face paling. The tech consulting giant that's been revolutionizing the industry? That's you. The very same, I smiled. Remember when you said my ideas about AI-driven consulting were cute but unrealistic? Those cute ideas are now worth $50 billion. Mom's phone wouldn't stop ringing, country club friends, business associates, everyone wanting to know about the massive sign lighting up downtown Chicago. But your little office, she stammered. Your modest lifestyle. Were choices, not limitations, I finished for her. Some of us don't need to show off success with mansions and Mercedes. I gestured around their ostentatious dining room. Though speaking of property, I pulled up another document, the deed to their mansion. The house was owned by Anderson Consulting's real estate division, Dad realized, horror dawning on his face. And now belongs to Anderson Global, I confirmed. Don't worry, I'm not as cruel as you. You can keep living here. As tenants. James Bradley stood up, straightening his tie. Sarah, perhaps we should discuss my position in the new organization. Your position? I raised an eyebrow. You mean the one you're about to lose? Check your email. His phone dinged right on cue. The blood drained from his face as he read his termination notice. You can't fire me. I'm senior partner. Was senior partner, I corrected. Anderson Global has different standards. Standards you mocked as unrealistic 7 years ago. The screens switched to live feeds from Anderson Consulting's offices worldwide. In each location, security teams were changing locks, IT specialists were upgrading systems, and shell-shocked executives were reading reorganization notices. The transition begins at midnight, I explained, checking my watch. In exactly 10 minutes, Anderson Consulting ceases to exist. Every client, every contract, every asset transfers to Anderson Global. Dad collapsed into his chair, his empire crumbling in real time. Mom had given up answering her phone, which buzzed endlessly with messages from her social circle. How? She whispered. How did we not know? Because you never bothered to look, I replied, pulling up news articles about Anderson Global's rise. Too busy arranging dinners with successful men like James. Too focused on maintaining appearances to notice the real success growing right under your noses. My phone buzzed again, Jennifer, with more updates. Press conference scheduled for 9 a.m. Global staff transition beginning in Asian offices. Former board members requesting emergency meetings. Speaking of appearances, I stood, smoothing my casual blazer. This Tom Ford original cost more than Dad's car. My modest office? A cover for our real headquarters. That little startup you mocked? Now owns every piece of Anderson Consulting. The screens showed more data, Anderson Global's true size and reach. Mom gasped at the numbers. Dad seemed to age years and minutes. James Bradley looked like he might faint. But why? Dad's voice cracked. Why destroy our legacy? Destroy it. I walked to the window, watching my name shine across the skyline. I saved it. Anderson Consulting was dying under your leadership. Anderson Global will make it stronger than ever. I turned back to the stunned room. Though I have to thank you, Dad. If you hadn't told me I'd never amount to anything, I might not have worked so hard to prove you wrong. The clock struck midnight. On every screen, Anderson Consulting's logo transformed into Anderson Global's modern design. In offices worldwide, the transition began. Now, I picked up my bag. Hermes, not that they'd recognize the limited edition. I have a company to run. A real company. Sarah, wait. Mom called out desperately. We're still family. Family. I paused at the door. Was it family when you dismissed every idea I had? When you pushed me to marry for success instead of create it? When you told me I'd never understand real business? Through the windows, the Chicago skyline glittered beneath my name, a testament to exactly how wrong they'd been. The press conference is at 9 a.m., I continued. You're welcome to attend. As observers, not participants. It's time you learned what real success looks like. I left them there, surrounded by screens showing their company's transformation, my name blazing above the city they thought they owned. Tomorrow the world would know about Anderson Global and its CEO. But tonight I'd given my family a private preview of just how expensive their condescension would prove to be. Success, after all, is the best revenge. The morning sun reflected off Anderson Tower, my tower now, as I stood in the executive suite that had once been my father's sanctuary. Through the windows I could see news helicopters circling, capturing footage of the massive sign that had shocked Chicago's business world overnight. Your father's been trying to reach the board members all morning, Jennifer reported, tablet in hand. They're all declining his calls, of course. Funny how quickly loyalty shifts. I smiled, watching the crowd gather in the plaza below. Financial reporters, business leaders, and curious onlookers, all waiting to meet the mysterious CEO who'd orchestrated the year's biggest corporate takeover. The markets open in 30 minutes, Jennifer continued. Trading algorithms predict our stock will surge at least 40% once the merger details become public. My phone buzzed, another desperate message from James Bradley. Sarah, please reconsider my position. My father's calling every contact he has. Block his number, I instructed. And his father's too. The Bradley era of failing upward is over. The elevator dinged and security called up. Ms. Anderson, your family is in the lobby. Your father's demanding entrance. Through the security feeds, I watched Dad arguing with the guards, waving his old access card uselessly. Mom stood behind him, still wearing yesterday's outfit, mascara smeared from a sleepless night. My siblings huddled nearby, probably realizing their trust funds now depended on my goodwill. Let them up, I decided. They should see this up close. Minutes later they burst into the office, Dad red-faced, Mom tearful, siblings shell-shocked. This is illegal. Dad shouted, storming toward my desk. You can't just take over a company through shell corporations. Actually, I pulled up the acquisition documents on the office's wraparound screens. I can and did. Every share purchase was legal, every board vote documented. Your own corporate governance rules made it possible. Rules I wrote, he slammed his fist down. Rules you wrote without understanding modern finance, I corrected. Too busy maintaining appearances to notice the world changing around you. The screens filled with more data, Anderson Consulting's declining metrics beside Anderson Global's soaring success. Look at these numbers, Dad. Really look at them. Client retention down 60%. Innovation metrics near zero. The company was dying under your leadership. We have traditions. Mom interjected. Standards. You can't just. Standards. I laughed. Like nepotism? Promoting people like James Bradley while ignoring actual talent? Those standards cost this company billions. Through the windows more news vans arrived. The plaza was packed now, all eyes on the tower where Chicago's biggest business story was unfolding. What about us? My sister demanded. Our trust funds, our positions. Are safe, I assured her. Unlike Dad, I don't believe in punishing family. You'll keep your funds, provided you stay out of company business. Dad sank into a visitor's chair, suddenly looking old. All those years, your small office, your modest success, were a masterclass in misdirection, I finished. While you were laughing at my startup, I was building an empire. While you were arranging dinners with suitable men, I was arranging the biggest corporate takeover in Chicago's history. The markets opened with a bang, Anderson Global's stock soaring as predicted. On every screen, financial networks dissected the merger, praising the strategic genius behind it. "Ms. Anderson," Jennifer called from the door, "the press conference is ready." Mom stepped forward, adjusting her smeared makeup. "Let us stand with you. Show a united family front." "United?" I turned to her. "Like when you united against every idea I proposed. When you united to mock my career choices. When you united to pressure me into a life I never wanted." Through the glass walls, I could see executives arriving for the press conference. Not the old guard Dad had cultivated, but bright young minds I'd recruited myself. "The company will keep the Anderson name," I told them, "but that's the only thing staying the same. Anderson Global represents the future innovation, merit, actual success instead of inherited privilege. You'll destroy everything we built." Dad protested. "No," I stepped toward the conference room. "I'll build something better. Something real. Something earned." I paused at the door, looking back at my shattered family. "You're welcome to watch the press conference. From here. Consider it a front row seat to the future you failed to see coming." The next hour was a blur of cameras, questions, and revelations. I unveiled Anderson Global's true scope, the AI innovations, the global reach, the revolutionary consulting methods Dad had dismissed as unrealistic. Through the glass walls, I could see my family watching, Dad's empire crumbling, Mom's social standing evaporating, my siblings realizing their easy rides were over. By noon it was done. Anderson Global's stock had doubled. Chicago's business world had a new leader. And my family, well, they finally understood what real success looked like. "Jennifer," I called as the press dispersed, "have security escort my family out. And change the access codes. It's time for new traditions." I watched them leave, defeated, humbled, finally seeing me clearly for the first time. Above the city, my name still blazed, not as the daughter they dismissed, but as the CEO who'd outmaneuvered them all. Success, after all, doesn't need their approval. It just needs their attention. And now finally I had it,